Hello, everyone. My name is Nehemiah Harmon with the Gainesville Podcast Studio, and welcome to another installment. We have a special guest, Leah Galione. I pronounced that correct?
You got it.
Awesome. She is a program director for Peak Literacy, and she's going to come and share some information about why her program is important and the work they're doing here in the Gainesville community. Welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So my first question right off the bat, right, the obvious one, why reading literacy? Why is that important?
Oh my goodness. I mean, literacy is the foundation for everything, right? I mean, when it comes to problems throughout our community, individual success, all of that links back to literacy and how well you can read. And without that, options become very, very limited. It's a crucial thing to be focusing on and paying attention to in our community.
And can you share some insight as to why you started the program that you have? And for the people who don't know about peak literacy, give them a little background as to what the mission of the program is, and once again, why you found it necessary to start it.
People say, how did you get into this? And I always say it was by accident, right? I did not foresee this. As many of us, as you get older, your career kind of goes in different directions that you might not have ever seen. And so I was given a small grant from a local church that was a one-time grant to pay my salary to do something with the literacy, the kids in the community that we were surrounded the church. And so I had kind of a background in community organization. And so I did my research and talked to people and tried to find out, how would you handle this? What would you do? What is the issues? What are the problems? I always think that when you are going to solve a problem, you go to the people first, that leadership should be bottom up and not top down. And I don't mean bottom like skill level. I mean, the people closest to the problem, I find that's where you get your solutions. And if you can bring that up to some of the people with the money and power, that's how actual change happens. So I just kind of took a lay of the land and figured out what to do and started. And so that was over 6 years ago. It was January 2020 was when we launched our program, and we had 15 kids, and then COVID happened. And so then I had to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Because these kids were already so behind. We're talking, fifth, sixth graders, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders reading on a first grade level, maybe.
Wow.
And
that's here in Alachua County.
Oh, yes. Yes. And it scared me, right? Like, here's kids who are already behind. Now there's nothing for them. They don't have they don't have anything in their homes. Like, how are they they're just it's going to get worse. And so I figured out how to do Zoom and how to, make it still work. And I had no volunteers at the time. So I just sat and did the lessons with the kids every day. And they would call me on Saturday morning and be like, Miss Leah, I want to do my reading. And so I was like, okay, it's Saturday, but sure, we're going to do our reading. And from there, it just built. When the kids went back to school, that's when we started getting phone calls. And it was like, what did you do? I've never seen scores increase like this for a child before. So it was reading teachers, it was, principals, just different things just started happening of like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just using this little program over here, really simple. And so that was kind of the beginning of our start, is realizing we had a tool that could help other people and that are struggling, and trying to put that tool in the hands of people that care and want to help, and then creating those relationships between the volunteers and the students that need help. And our success has just been because of the success the students have made, not because of something that we've done. We're just here kind of providing an opportunity and a tool for them to use. And, the kids are the ones that make the progress and are having great success.
That's beautiful. I have a question for you. When you have that third or fourth grader who is reading on the first grade level, when you tell them what literacy is, because that's probably a big word, right? How do you explain to them what literacy is?
I mean, I really wouldn't do that for a third or fourth grader. It's not that they don't know what they're doing, right? So typically, I will talk to them about coaches. So we call our tutors coaches, and that's strategic because kids can relate to that, right? Most kids have played a sport of some type, or they understand that concept. This was probably like 2 years ago. My 16-year-old at the time said, like, she was struggling with math, and I was like, do you need us to get you a tutor? And she's like, no, tutors are for stupid kids. And I was like, oh
Wow.
my gosh, like, do you realize, like, this is what I do, right, for my job? But that's what that means to them. You're stupid, you don't get something. And so typically when we have older kids, I'll say something like, how long does your homework take you at night? And either they don't do it, or because they can't, or it's taking them hours. How would you like to be able to get your homework done in about half that time and be able to get back on the court with your buds, right? Oh, well, that sounds good, right? And so we kind of explain it as far as like, this is going to help you no matter what you do. No matter if you want to go play sports, you're going to be able to have to read the diagram. You're going to have to know these kind of things. Whatever you want for your career choice, you have to have a basic level of reading. And our job is to help make it easier for you.
Since you mentioned that the principals and teachers was contacting you for seeing the significant results, going forward, how much does the school board here locally work with you in your program?
So I will say, as far as funding, there's no funding that comes from the school. But as far as collaboration and trying to get kids the help through us, I think there's quite a bit of support there. I mean, the need is so great. We can't serve all the kids that need help. And I think the schools recognize this, but it becomes very, very difficult. And so a lot of times people ask me, like, why aren't the schools doing this? Why aren't these, what is going on, right? The Annie Casey Foundation, who's very well known for like child just development and advocacy for youth. They just put out it's called Kids Count, and it's their state of, it's like their assessment of current trends in child advocacy. And out of all the fourth graders across the United States, 70% of them are not reading on grade level. So this is a problem here in Alachua County, a huge problem, and it's been this way for decades. But this is not like, it's not like an anomaly, right? We've got a literacy problem throughout our entire country. It's particularly bad here for our students of color and for the lower socioeconomic students. That's where you start to see big gaps. But there's no question our white students are suffering as well. There's across the board. So the school understands this. How do you, as a school teacher, have a room full of kids that are in third grade? Let's just take third grade, for example, because that's the year where kids get held
Start
up.
falling off, yes.
Right. You have children that are reading at a fifth and sixth grade level, and you have children that don't know their letter sounds. Now, by law, that teacher, unless that child has an IEP or a 504, cannot go back and remediate for those kids. So they can't go back and give them the things they're missing. They're on a structure, and they have to get their kids passing these exams, right? So it's like you just have to go, and you have to leave kids behind. And now, do some teachers, I'm sure, close the door and try and do what they can. But when you're missing gaps in reading, especially as the kids get older, it gets very hard to figure out what pieces they're missing. And the only real way to do that is one-on-one instruction, to really start where that child needs to be, but trying to figure that out in a group of 30 students when you've got behavioral issues, and it's a mess. I don't think the issue of literacy is solvable with our school system. And I don't care if it's public school or private school or whatever. I just don't think it's going to be solved that way. I think communities have to come together and come around this issue because it's impossible. And I mean, I've seen kids from all homeschool, private school, nobody can fix this issue. It's just too widespread.
If you had to give the community a great thing to collaborate around to let the politicians know that make the decisions with the budget, what would you suggest that they share collectively to make a change?
I mean, it's funding. I mean, it's funding the right things, right?
Absolutely.
It's what are those essential things that are going to, give kids that hand up and not a handout? Look, I'm on a lot of different boards. Putting books in the kids of hand, those things are important for kids to have books in their home. You can give any of the kids in my program a book at their grade level. They can't read it. So what are we doing? There was an initiative a few years ago that put little libraries and laundromats. And it was, I don't even know, I think it was like 15, I don't even remember city, county. It was like $15,000 or something that funded these. They were going to put little nooks and stick a volunteer in these laundromats because that's where people who don't have money go and they can help their kids. I'm sorry, what did you measure? Does anybody have any outcomes for that? What did you do? That was money thrown away.
Yeah, that's-
$15,000 I could have served. It's about $5,000 for a semester for 20 kids. I could have served 60 kids with that money and shown a grade level, at least a grade level of difference
Show
in
a
that time.
measurable result.
It's thinking that you're helping the problem, but you're not. It's not that it's not appreciated. It's very kind, but it's a lot of times people don't realize that what they're doing, if they're giving their money those places, it's really not having, it's having the effect of not helping at all. Because then that's money that's not being allocated somewhere else that can really show results. I'm not saying it's all about peak literacy. There's other things that go on, but it's coming around an idea of what things are people doing that are really moving the needle and coming behind and putting that money into those agencies that are doing it, that have the results and can show it.
We got to create more Leahs. That's one.
I
We
don't
have to
know.
create more Leahs.
My staff might say that they've had enough of me.
Yeah, so we have
One
to-
is enough.
Yeah, we have to create more of you. With that being said, I'm wondering with the school board, do they, like you mentioned, the 504 plans and the IEP? It seems like those should be shifted around to help private funding to come in and assist those at the lower once they identify. Do you see the needle moving from a political point of view of that those dollars being shifted to help someone that's in your cause, where you can say, hey, I can't take everybody, but 1-to-5 ratio, and this is what I need. No behaviors, or they have a little behaviors. It's kind of hard to act out when there's only 3-to-5. So, what is your normal ratio to that?
What is peak's normal ratio?
Right, compared to the
Ours is 1-to-1. So
1-to-1.
every child gets individual instruction. So there's no group instruction. And that's really what's needed. And that's why I say it's really hard. Imagine a school teacher. How can you
No, it's
possibly
not.
do it? It's just not. And in some other school districts like New York City, they've got tons of paras and these kind of things that are working really, really well. I don't know, how to fix, I don't know how to fix kind of a broken system. I
more
think
paras you just mentioned.
more paras are needed. I mean, better
That's trained,
IEP and 504 support. I mean, the schools get extra funding for those kids. And I can just say that there's a lot that's not happening in those 504s and IEPs that
Let me
need
ask
to
you a question. You're using the term 504s. For those people at home, maybe a parent or someone who is not inside of the industry as you are, what exactly is that?
Yeah. So an IEP is an individualized education plan, okay? And basically, if your child has some kind of disability, they have certain rights. So for example, and about 40% of the kids in our program have an IEP or 504. I'll explain 504 in a minute. But it basically says everybody has the right to an appropriate education, okay? And so For kids with differing needs, that looks different, right? So for a child that has, speech issues, they're supposed to be receiving speech in the schools, right? If they have dyslexia, right, then they should have certain accommodations that the school is providing for them. And some of them have to actually have a para with them all day because they have physical disabilities that they can't do, and so they have to have somebody with them. All those things are rights for students. The disconnect is sometimes parents don't know how to access those rights. They don't know how to get those supports. It's very difficult. The schools don't recognize outside agencies as saying, hey, this child has this issue. They have to do their own testing to determine that. So that's the IEP. The 504 is more of it's less stringent than the IEP. It's kind of like you have these things. So,
More testing time.
yeah, testing time for, you need for ADHD, it's very common to have a 504. And it's extra testing time because of your inability to concentrate. You might have you have the right to have teachers' notes given to you, those kind of things.
How do parents or guardians get their kids access to either of those if they need it?
I can answer that a little bit.
Yeah, go
I
for
think the teacher kind of identifies that and they make that decision. And then once they collect enough data of observing the child, then at that point it's given to the parent in order to make a decision to get some extended help. I think where the ball is broken to fix the system, and it's not all fixed out, is, as you said, the preparation of the funding. So yes, a lot of money goes to the school boards get money to list a child on a 504 in addition to the IEP. But where the ball is dropped, as you mentioned before, what's your measurable results? It's no different than getting the libraries and the laundromats or having the neighborhood mailbox full of books.
Right.
What's the measurable results? I mean, yes, it's a great effort. What's the measurable results? I personally feel like they're collecting the money, but there's no measurement of did it fix why the government is paying.
Right. But they will fix it on paper. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So they'll say, well, we did this and we did those things. But again, it's a sheer number of kids. I forget the number of kids in Alachua County that have IEPs, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And unfortunately, it is affecting based off your income. If you're what you consider low income or close to poverty, you tend to fall into this literacy rate. And unfortunately, it's affecting a lot of African Americans in that same situation as well. So from a community standpoint, if I had to remove outside of the school board, I'm hoping that the communities that surround you are able to be taught your program. With that being said, give us a idea on what one received from you, on what your program hits on, some subcategories that you feel that's a strong measurement on how you're getting the results that you're getting.
Wow, you said a lot. Okay, I'm breaking it apart. The kids in our program, they come in a multitude of different ways. So the first way is a parent or a grandparent or a teacher might refer them, but a parent or a grandparent, some kind of guardian, signs them up. So they go on our website, they fill out forms. And once they do that, then they have a meeting with a 1-hour meeting with our literacy specialist. And so that's when we do some assessments to determine, is your child because some parents, they're not sure. Usually when they've come to us or they find us, they're exasperated. I cannot tell you, almost every parent meeting has some kind of tears involved because they're either so relieved, they've been I've told them there's something wrong. They're telling me it's fine. And we go, clearly it's not. You're right. So a lot of it is just hey, mama, it's okay. You're doing a good job. We're going to help. Right. So assessing the kids, making sure that what we're going to do is appropriate for them and going to help, which in 9 times out of 10 it is, maybe 9.5 times out of 10 it is, then kind of figuring out, their schedule and how they're going to do their tutoring. The other way that students come to us is we have partnerships with about 13 different organizations throughout town. They're either after-school programs, they might be a school, or they might be a neighborhood. They've got a group of kids. They know they're struggling. They don't know what to do. They're just here. They're trying to help. They're doing homework. They're doing whatever they can. But they recognize they don't have the skills or they don't have the tools, or what do we do, right? And so where we come in is offering a really simple solution that we can either train them, we can train their staff how to do it, we can help provide them with volunteers. Wherever a child is, we meet them there. That's kind of our motto. So those kids we will partner with the site, and they usually have an indication of like, hey, I think, these 5 kids could really use it. Sometime we'll evaluate all the kids to see where they're performing, to see, do they need this? Do they not? In about 10 minutes, we can tell whether the intervention's appropriate or not, or if they need our help or if they don't. Occasionally there's like I'm not sure, but in most cases, we're talking 7th, 8th, 9th graders reading at 1st and 2nd grade levels. I mean, you would not believe it if you saw it.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
seen
devastating. And so what happens during those sessions? So we use the tool called Great Leaps. It's not a new tool. It's been around for decades.
Great Leaps?
Great Leaps, like a
Okay.
leap, like a dolphin. It's actually locally founded here, but not used well here, but used all over the world. So New York City schools, all their paras, all their teachers are trained in Great Leaps.
So it's not in the Alachua County school board system?
It is not. But here's why. It's a one-to-one intervention. It's got to be done one-to-one. Again, we go back to the issue. How do you do that, right? I don't know what they spend their money on, but it's not paras sitting in classrooms. They might have, Alachua County Schools solution last year was to hire a literacy specialist for each. I think they hired 3 to 5 literacy specialists for the middle schools.
They're making them to stay higher Leah.
What's that?
They need to hire you to be a consultant and train enough people.
But here's the
They
thing.
should run it through your program.
You have one literacy. Let's take Westwood Middle School. Okay, so now you have one literacy director, and out of that school, you have 200 kids that need your help. What could you possibly do? One person in one day, say you used Great Leaps, and you were one person, literacy specialist, and you did that, say you did their 15-minute lessons, so that's 4 kids an hour in an 8-hour school day with lunch break. And so the best you could probably do is 25 kids, help them through the entire year. You're not even going to move the needle. It's just the need is so great. So you have to think more strategically. What if we put, it doesn't have to be a literacy specialist in the school. What if you put one employee that can oversee volunteers that are coming in all throughout the day? That's what we do. We pay an employee to go into the school or after school. They're there. We pad the volunteers around them, and we're able to work, 4 people at a time without a literacy degree that are using a tool that's evidence-based and works. So it's just kind of like making a smarter decision about how you use resources. Now, do we need literacy specialists? Absolutely. But that literacy specialist should be doing the things that I can't do. Me and my volunteers, there's things that we can't do that are an addition to what we do or in place of that some kids might need. But in general, when a kid is struggling with reading, it's typically a fluency issue, unless there's some kind of problem. And so that's what we work on.
Bring a quick question. You say you work with them from 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
So when does the foundation should be built in you to read? Is it from K through 3? Because I'm like, why don't they flip the script instead of passing them along, then getting there and saying they can't read? It's like, I'm trying to think, how are you getting to 7th grade and nobody? It's like, how in the hell are you getting to 7th grade without nobody identifying that you couldn't read? And I say that this.
No, I know this is very confusing. I mean, I hear this all the time, Simon. It's not like people are like, I don't understand how that's happening. How are we graduating kids that can't read? Because that is happening by the hundreds as well.
Yes, it is.
First of all, kids are tricky. Okay, kids are tricky, and they don't want it. They don't want you to know how much they don't know. How easy is it to cheat? I mean, and you.
Right.
Kids are smart and they memorize a lot of words. So typically what we'll see in our program, There's 3 sections that we work on: phonics, phrases, and stories. Okay, so the first section is phonics decoding, being able to look at a word and go, at, mad, right? That says mad. You sound out words. That's how most of us, learn to read. Another way that people teach reading is just memorization. So they'll say, you'll see a picture of a car and you see this is a car, and you see the sentence and you understand that, oh, this word should go in here, right? So you memorize words. And once you memorize it, you just learn a bunch of words. And that's the phrases part of it. And some of those words you have to memorize just because they don't follow normal sounding out patterns, right? And more than 50% of our language is made up of sight words. But once you get those, it moves to long-term memory. So you don't have to keep remembering them again. You don't have to know that the says the.
Actually, kindergarten, the first grade, and second grade,
The
there should be a
decoding.
more measurable results before it gets to fifth and sixth.
Well, it should be,
Yes,
but
and it's not.
all
Obviously, it's
those
not.
all those components. So what I was going to say is that the third part we work on is stories and putting it all together. So what is not uncommon is that we will test in each section to see where they are. You may have a 4th grader that they can read the passage at like maybe a 2nd grade level, okay? But when they get to the decoding, they can't sound out 3 and 4 letter words. They're reading words like because and thought and so you're surprised. So if you never get them to sound out words, you might not know that they can't do that because they're reading, they might stumble over a few words, but they're kind of getting by. But when it comes to comprehending, they have no idea what they just read because their brain is like taking all their energy. That's all they can do is focus on. So they'll come and say, oh, well, they can't comprehend, and they get low comprehension scores on the test. No, they can't read. Typically, it's because they can't read, they can't decode. And that's what's making comprehension hard because their brain can't do 2 things at once.
Awesome. I want to take you on a journey with me. I want to hold your hand.
Okay.
I'm going to turn you into an artist, and I'm going to hand you a paintbrush. Okay?
Oh, dear. Okay.
All right, so what I need for you to do is help to paint a picture, because I think if we have a clear picture for people at home to see, they can better understand what the issue is and what possible solutions can be. Because as you said, I think that it's both, right? And when I say we are talking about the community, the government, whatever the case, school board, whatever, we're throwing money in a direction, but it may not be the most effective thing. And maybe that's because we don't clearly see the problem and what the possible solutions can be. So you're the artist. I want you to paint a picture of what a person who's struggling with the things that we've talked about at that early childhood stage. So what does that look like for that 3rd grader when they don't have reading literacy? Like what is that child struggling with? What is it like? What are the things that they can't do? What are they prohibited from? Paint that picture for that 3rd grader. What does it look like?
So the first thing that I would say is just self-confidence. Like their self-confidence is in the gutter. They think they're stupid. I mean, to watch these little kids, like, I can't do it. Like they're defeated and they know that. And so every day they're in an environment where they can't do what everybody else can. And that just is perpetuated. And so it causes trauma for kids. I mean, we have other traumas, sure, but when you can't read, it's another form of trauma. Kids make fun of you, well, they can make fun of you no matter what, right?
That's where the aggressive behavior starts.
Yep. And so that's exactly what I was going to say is, so what do they do when they can't do it? They're frustrated. So they act out. Either they're called on and they don't want to answer, so they misbehave, or they just get so frustrated that they can't do it that they, respond badly. When we look at behavior for those kids, I think it would not surprise anybody or anybody in our realm that most of those kids that have behavior problems, it's all linked back to literacy. And when you look at the justice system, many of those people probably should have been on an IEP or 504. They have some kind of something that makes it more difficult for them to learn. And if they had a little bit of support, that encouragement really can take them a long way.
Yes.
So that 3rd grader, they're struggling with their confidence.
Yeah.
They're being labeled either by themselves or others as stupid or can't learn, or then that leads to them being frustrated, which leads to acting out bad behavior. So they get a new label that this kid is just a bad kid. Not only are they disruptive, but they're also aggressive. They can't play with other kids. They're just not like the other kids. And so they take that third, fourth, fifth grade. Now they enter middle school. Paint the picture, sixth grade. What's that kid struggling with now? What does it look like?
Skipping school. We have a huge truancy problem here. I mean, a lot of kids aren't going to school. And then it's hard to, if you're a parent, I mean, and your kid doesn't want to go to school, I mean, and you've got to go to work. I mean, what are you going to do? Fight your kids, shove them in a car? I mean, it's not like 3-year-olds and you strap them in the car seat and bring them to, it's difficult.
Just to help you on this picture, when they get to middle school, not only the truancy start, but you see the aggressive behaviors. And everybody like attention. And when you can't get positive attention,
Yeah, that's right.
you automatically go to the negative.
That's right.
So this is when the bully starts. This is when the child can be in class, and if the teacher is, especially when you're new, not new teaching, but just going to the next grade and the teacher haven't had time to digest the entire population. And when you make that mistake and call on that child, and that child is ridiculed when you ask to solve a problem or read it,
Right.
and if he can't, you will see a behavior that you wouldn't think that's in a 10 or 11 or 12 or 13-year-old child. And he's going to let you know. But where the problem exists is instead of it getting addressed,
Correct.
it's not identified. You automatically label. So we going back to these 504s.
Yeah, and then you go to
individual
behavior.
IEPs,
Yep.
But they're not adding that you have a literacy problem. They're giving you aggressive behavior problem. And this is why there's always been a correlation with literacy in the prison pipeline.
That's right.
That it starts at once they identify that this is happening. So it's terrible that it happens, but
So middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, they're going through higher forms of regression, acting out, skipping school, probably having some juvenile issues at this point. The parents can't say or do much because also at this time, hormones are raging. So they're coming into their own. So as you kind of said, when they were younger, they were more or less an attachment or an extension of the parent. So a lot of times it says, oh, that's Leah's daughter. Whereas like middle school, oh, you're so-and-so's mom. You're Katie's mom, right? The identity shifts a little bit there. So now they have all this going on, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. All right, now they hit 9th grade. They're in high school. What are they struggling with now?
I mean, you're losing them. You've lost them at that point, in my opinion, and what I see. I mean, you've really just, I mean, sports. So you'll see a lot of boys, like they, will do the bare minimum, or I mean, girls too, but that becomes their only option. So when they can't see themselves reading or having success, then they, and there's nothing wrong with those things like sports or the trades, but you still have to have basic reading skills to enter the trades, right? I mean, but we have GED instructors that can't teach the GED here because the reading level is so low. It's like that they're not, GED instructors weren't trained to teach reading. They were trained to teach the things that, you should be able to read, and then you read and do these things. They can't even do that. So the negative self-image just continues, and then you look for alternative ways that you're going to get by in life. And that's typically either drugs,
the street life.
Yeah, it's street life is what, ultimately becomes open to you. Unless you have the resources for, or somebody recognizes it, or you have your family has the resources to try and get you help.
Well, to that point, I would imagine, I would imagine from 3rd to 9th grade at this point, they've gotten really good at hiding the low self-esteem, the not having the confidence, hiding the fact that they can't read, and then hiding behind, the aggression or the bullying or the persona that they put on to, masquerade as this. But they've practiced it for so long that they've mastered this. So what you're saying is, okay, well, hopefully it gets identified and hopefully someone gets them the help. At this point, they're a master of disguise. And so even if, and I would imagine for some of them, they even get lost in their identity. So then even if they were offered the help, and you could speak probably more on it, they would probably default to, I don't need that help. I am stupid. I don't need the help. I am just, a disruptor. Like, I don't need the help. I'm fine with who I am. Why do you want to change me? Do you see that at all?
So that's where I think the relationships with like some of the after schools are really, really helpful, because the number one predictor of success in any reading intervention that you use is the relationship with the tutor or the teacher. So you can use, I don't care, whatever you use. There's a million ways to teach reading, and kids have learned 1,000 different ways, right? Some probably better than others, but it's the relationship that you have with that person. And so having where I come in, I'm a white lady going on the east side of town that I don't know these kids. Me saying, hey, you need some help is a lot different than their coach or their after school director that's with them, their group, leader that's like, hey, that's where we have to strategically use some of those relationships to get buy-in from the kids, and some of it is, they need to be rewarded for doing something hard, and some of that should be built in. We don't have that built in currently, but it should be built in for doing hard things, because it is really hard. I know AMI kids that we work with, they have a grant where the youth that are not in school, they're able to pay them for doing their schoolwork to get that education that they need. And there's some grants that give them, some flexibility to get paid for doing the work.
Which brings a question for me. Are there grants for the parents? Because when you mentioned that it would have to have a collaborative effort, and I'm assuming that the child is coming from a situation where the literacy rates may not be as high. So is there any incentives to get parents involved to learn this Great Leap program? That way, when you take a student, that the parent has to kind of go through that to give the extra work, so you can kind of just quarterback the situation with the parent. If the parent is loving their child enough to say, hey, I'm going to go through it with my child and do everything you say to try to reinforce your one-on-one sessions, to take home and reinforce it more.
I mean, that was kind of one of the original barriers, was when we had it just parents signing up or grandparents signing up, then we weren't quite reaching, I guess, the lowest of the low, right? Because in those cases, that child has a parent or a grandparent that cared enough to sign them up to fill out the forms, or that could fill out the forms, right? And that is going to make sure that they get online every day, right? That is very different from, a kid whose parent didn't even sign them up for an after school program, right? Because they don't have the funds or they don't have the transportation to get home. So then that's another level of privilege, right? For kids that are able to go to an after school program. Then you have schools, right? Parents might not be able to get them to after school, but they have transportation in most days to school. So then we go into the schools and serve those kids. But they're still missing kids, because what about those kids that don't go to school? So that's where we had to go into the neighborhoods. I don't know of another level. If there is one, I guess we'll find it. But that's kind of, you've got to go where those kids are that may or may not have that buy-in from parents or grandparents. And there's plenty of kids too that their parents didn't get what they needed. And that's part of kind of what we're bridging to, and the kind of a multi-generational offering of would the parent like to get help at the same time with the kid? But that is a whole nother, you talk about admitting that there's a problem, that's a whole nother level, being an adult, an illiterate adult that takes some care and concern from people. But we've trained parents to be able to do Great Leaps with their kids, on the days that they're not with Peak. We'll, give it away. It's a tool that can be used. Who wants to use it? And we'll help you find a way to help your kid or help your niece or nephew or whoever, your student. That's
Sounds
kind of
good.
our heart behind it.
This has been a very big topic that we're trying to put all into one conversation, which really has to be multiple conversations. But before we wrap up, I just got some fun questions for you.
Okay.
So the first one I have is, what's one book that you remember from your childhood?
Oh. One book that I remember from my childhood. And this probably plays into why I like puns, but the Amelia Bedelia books. Do you know Amelia Bedelia?
We're gonna have to find it and like put it up on the screen.
Yeah. She's like this odd character, and she just, she takes everything literally. And I always thought those were really funny. Anyway.
Do you think your kids have read that book?
No.
Oh, you're gonna have to order from Amazon and have your kids read the book.
Have the kids read the book.
What about you, Simon?
Green Eggs and Ham, Sam I Am.
Mm.
That series of Dr. Seuss. It was animated characters in it and nice little short stories that kind of got to the point. And that was my go-to in the elementary days that stands out.
For me, and I can't remember the name of the book, but everyone from my generation remembers this book. There was a fish that had like the fin was like glitter or something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, everyone remembers
what
the
is
book.
that book?
I can't remember, but that is
I
one
know
book
what
that
you're talking about.
So for my generation, I think all of us have a vivid, because that was in all of our libraries, a vivid memory of that book. And someone at home is putting in the comments of like, yeah, the book's name is this. So please do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it on the screen, but it's the fish with the little fin that's like glittery. So next question for you. Did you find, growing up, did you consider yourself a good reader?
I did. Yeah. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. My grandmother was kindergarten. So when I tell you we had books everywhere, I just loved reading. I loved reading. It's an important outlet for me. That's how I decompress. And yeah.
Do you think that for a child or ones that you've worked with, falling in love with reading, is that necessary to becoming literate in reading?
I think it is. But I don't think that's where you'll start, because they're not going to. And I say this too, of like, what a shame that we've made kids hate reading, right? People that enjoy reading really, enjoy it. Everything opens up to you when you can read.
I think creating the curiosity to read was the problem. Like you mentioned something earlier about how it's important it is to have a home that have books in it. And I'm just going to give a brief story. My dad, you remember they used to sell the encyclopedias?
Oh yeah, I think we have some in the
Well, those were the things that influenced us to pick up something outside of this.
Did you like reading those? Oh, my dad tried to make us read those, and I was like, I'm not reading that.
That you can relate to, that had pictures. Those were the ones for me. And I have a son. He always said, I was like, how did he get his reading turned on? It was because we had a little library in there. And he was like, hey, I saw
a book.
And mom grab a book every now and then and read it, and he's that one that's always, hey, did you read this book? Did you read that? I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, so that love, I think, is important, but they're not going to start there. And I think once they recognize that they can do it, that's when they'll pick up the reading material that's of interest to them, and they can take themselves the rest of the way there. So Ken with Great Leaps, who wrote Great Leaps, says that if you can get a child to about a 4.7 grade level, they will take themselves the rest of the way there. So they'll read, by that point, they're fluent enough that they can read enough and figure out words that they'll continue reading, figuring out words, looking things up, going, Alexa, what does this word mean? They'll do those kind of things that take them the rest of the way there. So
I did not like reading as a kid.
You
Believe it or
didn't?
not, I love reading as an adult, but I didn't like reading as a kid. And what my parents are also teachers. What they taught me is that I didn't have to read a book. So believe it or not, to this day, I don't necessarily, unless it's a book that I know the information I'm looking for is in the book, I'm excited about reading that. But just to pick up a book and read, I'm not excited. But however, magazines, articles, love reading articles.
Right.
And I think it's because I personally, I love being able to accomplish something. So for some people, like, oh, I accomplished a chapter. I'm like, if I didn't read the whole book, I didn't, what's 10 pages? So for me, I loved reading the newspaper. So they would give me a newspaper and I just had to read the article. Like they would say, okay, read this one. And then you go find the page and like flipping over the page, all those things that helped me to love reading. Although when I said I didn't like reading as a child, what I meant was I didn't really like books because books were big and I couldn't complete it all in one sitting. And I was the type of person as a child that I really got excited about completion. And so if I couldn't complete it, it made me feel like I didn't accomplish something, and I just, not necessarily a waste of time, but I just didn't like that feeling of I didn't win. And maybe that's the boy thing.
Okay,
I
interesting.
didn't complete it. I didn't win, so
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. And obviously, I can articulate it now as an adult, but like that's what it was. Why I didn't like reading books, and I just said it as I don't like reading. But my parents were smart enough to know, like, let's give you other things to
Yes.
read. And I found that,
Recipes, those kind of things. I mean, all of that is reading articles. I mean, going on your phone. A lot of people are like, reading on the phone. They'll read on the. Let them read on the phone. Read whatever they'll read. It doesn't matter the content. Just let them read about video games if that's what they're interested in. Because that's what's motivating to them.
Curiosity.
Yep, exactly. Curiosity.
I know that you and Simon are in the generation before mine. When I was growing up in school, which I don't, you guys tell me because you're more in the education space now. When I was growing up, we had the FCAT. FCAT's not a thing anymore. They have something else, right? What is
Fast
it?
test.
So they have fast tests. What did they have during your generation?
I know I can't remember.
Gosh.
Did you guys have standardized testing?
Yeah, that was standardized testing. There was, but I can't remember the exact name that they used then. But what I will tell you, they keep changing it based off of what politicians are feeling and not listening to what the teachers are seeing. That's the problem with those tests when they design them. They never put individuals like Leah and a group of others to design a test to identify these literacy problems. Because some of those kids that you say they can't read now, for whatever reason, they have a revelation in prison, because that's where they lead to. Somehow they catch it. And when they catch it, they be like, wow, public school failed me. I didn't fail it. And you would hear me say this when I fumble on a word, and I say, "Oh, don't worry about it. I had a public education." I often say that around people all the time. That if I misspell something, I say, "Yeah, I had public education," because it's the same problem.
Yeah.
We're in 2026 literacy. You go back 20 more years, literacy, and it's like the richest country in the world seriously have a problem that you have to say it has to be strategic.
There's something with standardized testing that I find interesting. Like I said, both my parents were teachers, and I didn't consider myself a good reader, not because I couldn't read, but simply because I didn't like reading. So I vividly remember, like I said, we had the FCAT as our standardized testing. And I remember my first time taking the FCAT, my dad's advice to me, he was like, don't try and read and then answer the questions. He was like, go look at the questions and then go find the answers.
Yep.
So because he was a teacher, he taught me how to pass tests.
Yes.
So while all the other kids were thinking, okay, I got to read all this information, then I answer the question. One, they could never complete it. I was like, I always completed it very fast, and I always got a high score. And everyone would just assume, well, he's a really good reader, or he's a really good writer. It's like, no, I just happen to have a dad that told me, like, the goal is not to, sadly enough, read. The goal is to pass the test.
Right.
So in that's really funny because you talked about homework, and this is my last little rant, and we'll close it out. I hated doing homework. And the reason is because when I was growing up, especially in high school, they had changed the way they weighted things for homework. Because before they didn't put much of a weight on it, but because kids were not doing well with testing, they made homework 30% of the grade. And I've always been divergent. And I was like, well, I don't have a problem with testing. If anything, I'm amazing at testing. I was like, and I don't want to be handed something to go home to do. They're paying you to teach me. So if I got to go home and teach myself, I don't want to do it. And I remember not only did I struggle with doing homework in high school, that was also something they took over to the college level when I started at Santa Fe. It was the same thing. The highest you get, and they were more strict on it. Like, it wasn't as strict in high school, but when I got to Santa Fe, it was very strict. Like, they were like, no, it's literally 30% of your grade. And when you would ask, it was because they would tell you the answer, because a lot of people struggle with testing. And to make it fair, we give more weight to the homework. And I went back to, I don't struggle with homework, so I'm not going to do it. And I refused to do it. And I remember vividly, this was my Renaissance class. And I didn't do any of the homework during that semester. It was like homework for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then you would do a test. Then homework, quiz, then test, right? So I came to class every day, but I didn't turn in a single assignment because I was dead set on I'm not going to do homework because I don't have a problem with taking tests. So the first test came out, got 100 on the test. And I remember my professor chasing me down one day and she told me this. She says, I thought you were stupid. I literally thought you were stupid, but then you passed my test. So now I know that you're lazy. Why don't you do my homework? And I explained to her, I said, because you told me during the first, like when we went through a syllabus and all stuff, you said that's for people who have struggle taking tests. I was like, I don't, clearly. I was like, so the homework doesn't apply to me. And she said to me, she's like, you do realize that the highest you can get if you get 100 on every single one is a 70. And I said, a 70 is passing, right? And she said, you're very smart, but you're doing something really dumb. She was like, please stop wasting your potential. And so that after that conversation, I did think a little bit more about it.
But you still didn't do your homework.
No, I still struggle to do a homework, but I did start doing the homework, but it was more so because of the statement that she made. And she went more into it where she was basically explaining to me, she was like, you're privileged to have the ability to be a great student. She's like, a lot of people struggle in a place where you have the potential to succeed. She's like, so for you to not work to your full potential, she was like, it's a waste. From her perspective, she's like, right. I dedicate my life to this. Like, very rarely do I come to someone who has the potential to be great as a scholar, and you're just not doing it because of whatever wild principle you have in your head of you just won't, the system's not fair. It's like, life isn't fair. Like, just do the homework because you can get an A in my class. A lot of people, they will never get an A because they can't test. They can't read. They're not lit. Whatever the case, like there's something that's preventing them from getting A. It's just like the only thing that's preventing you from getting A is like you're stuck on the fact of like, I don't think it's fair and I'm okay with getting a C. And so anyways, after that conversation, it did make me apply myself more. And that's kids, do your homework. I don't know what the weight is now. Well, I don't know if they ever changed that.
That's a good point because for a lot of people, I mean, I'll get frustrated at this with my son's homework. I'm like, this is ridiculous. You've shown that you can do this work. Why? And I'm staying up till 11 o'clock at night. It's math. Okay. We did talk about math in this conversation, but and I'm staying up trying to figure out how to tell him to do it. And I'm like, this is dumb. It's just busy work. Right. And so you have like people that are real logical that like, just like that of like, I'm not going to do it. I could do it, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to, or and I don't know, I mean,
if I was your teacher, you made 100, you'd just been getting the A with me.
That's how I would say it too. You've done it. That's right. Yeah.
Take 30% of your grade.
Unfortunately, I don't think that she had, because I think it was like top down that was just the standard for the college that she couldn't change if she wanted to. I think that was part of her point. She was like, just please get an A in my class. Yeah. Because no one else may get an A in my class, but clearly you have potential to get an A in my class. It's like you're not even gonna. But I struggle, and to this the day, I still struggle with sometimes the concepts of I have to do, and part of it is I'm divergent, which I've realized that I'm very grateful for my parents. And I've shared this with Simon, but I remember as a kid vividly that if you as a teacher said, "All right, everybody stand up," what I heard for whatever reason is everyone stand up. Nehemiah, would you like to stand up? And that's how my brain has always worked. It's always an option for me. It was mandatory for everyone else, but it was always an option. Yeah. So I hear that all the time. It has been something that has made me successful in a lot of things that I've done, because you can tell everyone else like that can't be done. And for whatever reason, my brain just hears that's impossible for everyone. But Nehemiah, if you wanted to try it, that's exactly me too. Yeah. And so with that, I give great kudos to my parents because they realize that that's also something that's extremely dangerous. So let me teach you how to do this within boundaries, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's teach you how to do this within boundaries. So my parents were extremely strict on me. I told people all the time, I was like, my parents were super strict on me. But as an adult, I understood why. They had a kid who was like, had a lot of potential, but potential can go in either direction. Correct. It just had to be one of those things where it's like, let me just teach you how to use this to work and be a gift and not necessarily a burden for your life, son. Because it's great that you won't be told what you can't do. But however, there are certain times when someone tells you what you need to do and you just have to listen. It, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's funny.
Yeah. So before we go, any closing thoughts, any call to action? I do have one for you because you talked about the padding your employee with the volunteers and that being a very effective model. How do you get your volunteers and how can people sign up for being a volunteer?
Yeah. So volunteers really come to us. We don't really recruit. And I think that speaks to the program success because people feel good about what they're doing. When they work with kids, they see the results themselves and it's really rewarding. A lot of times when you do volunteer work, you're just like, you like I don't know, make a meal and, for somebody and you never really hear anything about it, or go to a food giveaway and you help give out food and like, do you see the impact on that person? You never know what happened. And so here where you really get to see the results of like what you're doing with the child every single day, it's really rewarding. And so typically we have people come back and want to do more. Like, I want to help with assessments. I want to do this, or they stay with us a really, really long time. And so we love to give those opportunities to anybody that would like it. It's a really simple online training. We just finished our asynchronous training. So it's all online, and you train, and then we pair you with a student. We work with you with the student for 2 to 3 times, making sure that you understand what you're doing. The child, you understand how to use the curriculum, and then you either show up and you can come once a week in person for an hour and a half. If you don't want to do in person, then you can volunteer online 15 minutes a day. Super simple. You have a Zoho meeting. It's like Zoom. It's all recorded for student and volunteer safety. You hop on a Zoom call, and in 15 minutes, you can really help change the trajectory of a child's life.
I know when you first talked about starting, you got support financially from a church in order to get started. Do you find that faith-based organizations are still supporting, or has that not been the
We
case?
really have not had any faith-based organizations do that. A majority of our funding comes from the Children's Trust of Alachua County and then Alachua County. So we are heavily grant funded, which is not a great situation to be in. As we saw at the beginning of the year, we didn't have any federal grants, so that didn't strain us. But for sure, with the upcoming election for the property taxes, if that gets passed, then that is going to cut a lot of funding from a lot of organizations that serve kids and families. And that will be we would be one of them for both the county and the Children's Trust. So it's really, really important. And this has been important to me from the beginning, that we have the community supporting us. And so we're starting a campaign called All In for Literacy, and that can mean anything. What does all in to you mean? What does that mean that you contribute, Nehemiah, as a person? Is it having me here on the podcast and, spreading the word that way? Simon, is it volunteering once a day with a kid, online? Is it making a $10, a $20, or $100 donation every month to, sponsor kids? That's what we want, is the community to come around and support in whatever way that is, volunteering, donations, however they can help. We want to do it
Come
together.
right back to you, Leah. Simon, you know how important it is for people to be able to read the Bible, right? Like, they got to be able to read. And imagine if they have reading literacy issues, they couldn't read the Bible, could they? Is it possible? They probably couldn't, right?
Leah and I are going to fix that.
Yeah. So I would
Gonna
think
fix that.
that it would be a very great and important thing for these faith-based organizations who would also agree that reading the Bible
I'm
would
going
help.
to be her champion.
You got that?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
cool.
going to be her champion for that. I'm going to be her champion.
That is, it's a really good
It's nice.
point.
This
It's
has been
just-
very
yeah.
nice. I'm excited when it's in for us to get together.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts? Can you let the people know where your website is?
Sure.
How, if they do think that their child may have this issue, how they can reach out for the help and support they need as well?
Sure. So our website is www.peakliteracy.org. And our phone number is 352-234-3132. You can email us at info@peakliteracy.org. You can, on our website, there's a section for parents, there's a section for volunteers. You can see some of our different sites that we're working with. If you suspect at all that your child is not getting what they need at school, or something just isn't right. We always say, mama's intuition, but it can be dad's, it's you trust that inner gut that's like, something's just not right. It's a really simple phone call, and, sign up for an hour assessment, and we'll, see what we can do to help you. If we can't help you, then we will always point you in the direction of how you can get help for whatever your need is. So we're here and super glad to have any volunteers and any kids in our program, and adults. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Leah, so much for
you.
joining us for the podcast. We really enjoyed the information that you shared and the work you're doing here in Alachua County and the greater Gainesville community. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you guys, make sure you go out and support Leah. She's giving you all the information. And I would encourage you to make sure that you're helping your children read, that you're encouraging them to read, finding things that they love to read and reading with them. Because as Simon said, it was very impactful for his kids that they saw him reading as well. That will make it fun. Have a blessed one.